Right, joining us is our special guest, Ambassador Gurjeet Singh. Also joining me from Johannesburg is my colleague Amritpal Singh. Amrit, if I can start with you first in Johannesburg. Amrit, what did you make of India's interventions on day one at the summit?
Mody's intervention on day one in the first session of the G20, which was on sustainable economic growth, inclusive and sustainable economic growth. The Prime Minister essentially put forth four proposals on different areas, which include global healthcare response to bring together trained medical experts for the G20 nations, to strengthen the global health security and the emergency response capacity. He also put forth India's vision on a united global effort to dismantle the drug and terror nexus. The Prime Minister also put the third proposal about G20's Africa Skills Multiplier, which primarily aims, which will be an initiative to prepare 1 million certified trainers for Africa over the next in the next one decade. The Prime Minister also proposed for a global traditional knowledge repository under the G20, which is powered by Indian knowledge systems for sustainable insights for future generations. So Prime Minister calling for revisiting the way the world looks at development, calling for revisiting our developmental parameters, and proposing India's civilizational values of integral humanism. Calling for a united effort to look at addressing problems, especially those of the global south. The G20 working together as one grouping to reach to the people who need it the most, and the focus clearly on the African continent and the global south in particular, Ramesh.
Amrit, the Prime Minister also held a number of meetings and pull-asides on the margins of the summit as well. What have we been able to learn about those meetings of the Prime Minister? Right, we'll come back to Amritpal in just a bit. We'll try to fix that link with him in Johannesburg. In the meantime, if I can bring in our guest, Ambassador Gurjeet Singh, on this discussion. Ambassador Singh is a former Indian envoy to Ethiopia, Djibouti and the African Union. He is also a former ambassador to Germany, Indonesia, Timor-Leste and ASEAN. Ambassador Singh, welcome to DD India News Hour. Are you satisfied with the outcomes from day one of the summit? Anything that stood out for you from the ordinary?
So I think it was a good day, and the possible derailment by the absence of the United States has been overcome by the hosts treating it like an abstention rather than an absence. And therefore they have passed the declaration and said it is not open for renegotiation. The declaration itself, as your report pointed out, has many of the initiatives India had started. And it remains, focused on global south objectives. It also talks about peace and development in Sudan, in Ukraine, in Palestine and elsewhere. But the sad part is that the European attention of today has been diverted by President Trump's 28-point Ukraine plan. So I think Europeans, though they were at the table, they were more keen to understand how they could get back into the Ukraine gate, of which they seem to be excluded.
Ambassador, we'll come to Ukraine, Russia in just a bit later on the broadcast. But if we can talk a bit more on the summit itself, the G20 in Johannesburg, talking about the four proposals by India, including the G20 Global Traditional Knowledge Repository, G20 Africa Skills Multiplier Initiative, G20 Global Healthcare Response Team, and last but not the least, the G20 Initiative on Countering Drug Terror Nexus. Your thoughts on these four ideas or proposals, Ambassador Singh?
Four outstanding ideas, very well crafted proposals. And let's start with fentanyl.
Sure.
So when you say fentanyl, you tend to blame China. That's the code line, because most of it comes from there. The United States is so miffed with China that they have put 40% tariffs on China only for fentanyl. So fentanyl is a big threat in this world, and fentanyl and other synthetic drugs. So it is so good that India brought this up at the G20. Now when you come to the public health preparedness, this is to support a post-pandemic response, so that in future, if there is any pandemic or other health emergency, we would not be found lacking in readiness. And India's readiness to contribute to this from its own successful experience of dealing with the pandemic, I think will come to the fore. When we come to traditional knowledge, this has resonance with the global south, particularly with Africa, where traditional knowledge is dying out. So I think what India is proposing is how to protect this and keep it for future generations. And finally, I think the most important, the skill development concept, which is the base of India's development cooperation with the global south. I think that has been well crafted and placed, that we will now contribute to the training of trainers in Africa, so that the capacity building and human resource development of African youth can become useful to them. I'm sure the implementation of this will be taken up by India through its ITEC program and when the next India-Africa summit meets.
Ambassador Singh, the Prime Minister held a number of meetings, polar sides on the margins of the summit. As they say, sometimes what takes place on the margins of a summit becomes more important sometimes than the summit itself. What did you make of his meetings or talks with the leaders of Brazil, for instance, the UK, France, Malaysia, the UN and South Korea for that matter?
So, yesterday you showed the meeting with the Australian Prime Minister.
Right.
And today the meeting with the Korean president, the second in this year itself. These were proper sit-down meetings. The others were largely pull-asides, like the one you're showing now. But Prime Minister has this ability to very succinctly make a relevant point and get the other person's attention and share some information which is current and get their views and convey our views. So these pull-asides, he is very good at, and I think his personality is such that he reaches out to people. One of the important meetings today was with the Canadian Prime Minister, Carney. Now that is a bit of a revelation, because since the G7 summit in June, India-Canadian relations have really picked up. And when both of them met with the Australian Prime Minister and announced a new innovation and technology partnership, I think that was a very good step forward, which will encompass these three democracies, as they said, across three oceans, into coming together into a new innovation partnership. Now that will supplement what we have with the United States. So as diversification and complementarity, I think this initiative also needs to be well recognized.
Indeed.